About to start the program for today. We'll bring a guest in a minute. If you're new to the program, we'll do an intro, find out more about what we do here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. It is officially the year 2026, so excited to kick off a new year as well and get going. Actually, I'll be right back on screen, just grabbing my tea. Gotta stay hydrated. Then we will bring in people into the Zoom room here, of course, as well. Hey guys, thanks for joining the Zoom call. Good to see you guys here. And we're going to start the program momentarily, do an intro, and we'll find out more about Piano Tech Radio and what we're up to today. So, this is, again, Piano Tech Radio Hour, and what we do here is we meet every Saturday to convene with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano and music world. This includes manufacturers of instruments, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments besides piano, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. That's an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's just $16 a month. Gives you direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. You can join using the link bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh. And of course, remind you we have a podcast audio only version of this show. You can check out pianotechradio.com. Check out our Substack, which gives blog posts with some technical content from our archives of the master classes. And you can also find us on the social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to the email list, which is, I'll just open up the document here, is available at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And you can just put in your name, your email address, and you can get yourself subscribed and find out more about the shows that are upcoming. I am about to intro our guest for today. He is coming to us remotely from Wisconsin, though he is a resident of New York. His name is John Sturino. He is a composer, drummer, and band leader whose work explores scale, texture, and collaboration across jazz and contemporary classical worlds, from sculpting a 10-person wind ensemble to feel orchestral, to weaving string quartet and jazz quartet into a single expressive voice. John's projects reflect a deep curiosity about how music is built and who gets to shape it. He's an award-winning composer and arranger, drummer. He's based there in New York City, as I mentioned. He leads Blow Globe. It's a chamber-sized wind ensemble that earned the Chamber Music America New Jazz Works Grant 2024 and released his debut album Blow Globe in 2025. His composition, A Boundless Design, received the David Baker Prize, blending jazz and classical string quartet traditions. John, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's start off by asking you what your 2026 is going to look like here. You got any big plans musically,
Sure.
professionally? What do you got?
Yeah, well, first I'll say thanks, Ethan and everyone, for having me. Honored to be here, just talking to you about music and what's going on in my life. And a Happy New Year to everyone out there listening. It's still January 3rd, right? So I feel like the first 3 days of the New Year is fair game to say Happy New Year whenever you see someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been kind of a crazy half of a year or thereabout. And really it's not stopping anytime soon. So my life, as you mentioned before, I'm a performer in that I play drums and I play other percussion instruments. and I'm also a writer, a music writer, both a composer and an arranger slash orchestrator for hire. So really, my schedule kind of fluctuates pretty heavily between working from home, from my home studio space, working on compositions for my own projects, working on arrangements for other people, or even commissioned compositions for, say, universities or other professional bands out there. Um, and then the other side of it is that I perform. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a daunting task to keep everything working in working order. So and that just means making sure I get some drumsticks in my hands. And because writing is not a momentary art form, it's not a performing art form per se in a direct way. It's more of a revision art form in that you can take time to, usually if you have enough of time before the deadline, you take time to consider what it is you're putting down on the page for other people to play in the future, whereas performing is a momentary art form. So I need to just make sure I physically and mentally take a moment each day, whether it's 5 minutes or 2 hours, to practice and just keep my hands in working order, so that I don't feel like a retired drummer when I go to play. So coming up this year, hitting the ground running, my band Blow Globe, which is my current main project of my own. And for those of you who aren't aware, Blow Globe is a 10-piece kind of chamber jazz ensemble. It's not really a big band because there's not any sections of instruments in the ensemble, and it's not really a small group either because all the music is written out, and so in a sense it functions like a big band musically because we have charts that we play or compositions that we play, but in another sense it's not quite a big band because when I think of a big band, the defining characteristic is, to me, is the like a section of 3 or 4 trombones or even 5, and a section of 4 or 5 trumpets, and a section of saxophones. And my main rule with my band, Blow Globe, is that, and it's almost a challenge to myself as an orchestrator and composer and arranger, is that I don't want to have more than one of any instrument. So the original instrumentation started as just 3 woodwind, 3 brass, and it was trumpet, trombone, French horn in the brass section, and then alto, tenor, and baritone saxophones in the woodwinds. And it's expanded a little bit, and I've broken my rule already in a way, but purely out of necessity. And I have a second trumpet player now in the band, so there's technically 2 trumpets, but I don't think of them as the same instrument in terms of their function in the band. So one trumpet player is almost like a separate lead trumpet player that doesn't have any soloing and then the other trumpet player is the one that takes the solos usually. And that's just a functional thing of like, it's really a tall task to ask a one trumpet player to play lead style trumpet, jazz lead style trumpet, and then also solo for a while on certain songs. So in a way, I still feel like even though it is the same instrument, they function very differently. So in a way, I feel like I'm still adhering to the spirit of my rule, at least, that I set out.
Listen, man, it's
when I
your
started.
rule. You get to break it.
No, it's but it's been really fun, and I feel like I've actually grown a lot as an orchestrator in particular, having this band with this set rule, because you can't depend on, like, you can't write a 5-voice chord and just give it to the saxophone section like you would in a jazz large ensemble or big band, and know that it's gonna, as long as you're writing the correct notes, it's gonna blend, right? Here it's like okay, I have to make this chord voicing or whatever is going on in the music work where like every instrument is different. So there's no sense of like unison ensemble in terms of say like having three cellos or three violins, right? Where you get a section sound. That's it's a little bit different in that with my band I have to think about the combinations of the sounds all the time. And
Sure.
it's really no different than how I write big band music. A lot of times before I even had this group, I was doing that where instead of having I don't really like to write unless it's I don't know, a certain passage musically. I don't really like to write I try to stay away from writing like a saxophone section together. I can't think of the last time I wrote a saxophone solely on any arrangement or anything. I'd rather hear like some saxophones, a trombone, and
I
flugelhorn
see.
play it.
In terms of the palette, you
Yeah,
like to
yeah, just
have a mixed palette anyways
yeah,
when
it's
you're
it's
writing the big band stuff.
yeah, and also like with a big band, I love. Uh, I'm so lucky in that a lot of the work I do is for professional bands that have very good doubling woodwind sections. So they don't just play saxophones, but they play bass clarinet and flutes, all the flutes like piccolo, alto flute, and C flute, and maybe some other stuff as well. That if that's an option, I'm always going to do that because I end up again thinking with this instrument combinations and pairings in mind to create different sonorities. I end up um, I end up always using doubles if it's offered in
Mm.
some way because I don't know I get kind of bored with my own writing if I'm just writing for saxophone section. And
Doubles meaning, so
not
if
that I
you have
don't.
two of an instrument, you mean you double the pitch that they're playing, or just
So
make it?
so instrument doubles meaning like in a jazz band you would have five saxophones. Usually you would have like a standard instrumentation is two altos, two tenor saxophones, and one bari saxophone.
Okay.
And then on top of that, a lot of professional bands, like I just finished an arrangement for this band in Copenhagen, the Danish radio big band. Um, they have a really phenomenal saxophone section that all the players play additional woodwind instruments. So like this one I just did has a lot of flute and has a lot of alto flute on it, and then the other saxophone players just stay on their saxophones. But I if all I'm trying to say is that if that's an option presented to me when somebody says, "Hey, can you write this piece?" I almost always end up doing that, um, which I have to be careful because you want to make sure you're writing for the band's strengths too.
Mm.
But anyways, uh,
I'm
that was a
thinking about taking
long,
a I'm thinking about taking a listen so we can put the words to the music
yeah.
as we
Um,
might.
that was a long-winded way to say that my band Blow Globe that I was talking about just before, we're playing at the Jazz Education Network or Gen conference in New Orleans next week or this coming week, I should say, on Thursday, January 8th at 1 p.m. If you happen to be at the Gen conference, come by and say hello. And we're playing for about 50 minutes, I think, 1 to 150. And then after that, I have a bunch of writing work that I've gotten way behind on this last month, just from the holiday things happening and getting sick, and then my family getting sick, and lost it. I'm a little bit behind on some deadlines, but it's thankfully they're not too hard of deadlines that I can have a little flexibility on. Um,
Where's the event, by the way?
the event is in New Orleans, in
Oh,
New
wow, how
Orleans, Louisiana.
exciting.
Yeah,
Oh, I love
yeah.
that. Oh
I'm
my gosh.
I'm I'm very
Jazz
excited.
education event in New Orleans. Whew, I don't know if you can do
Yeah,
much better than that. That's awesome.
yeah. Um, yeah. It's I'm looking forward to it. I've actually never been to New Orleans, and I've always wanted to go,
Oh, oh my
and
God.
I've always kind of
Oh
had it
yeah.
on my radar to try and get there just to spend some time. So I'm probably going to end up playing with my band and then walk out the door and go get a beignet or some food
Yeah.
or something.
So I just watched a movie. It's called Chef. Have you seen this movie?
No.
It's
Wait,
actually
is that the one with Ray Fiennes?
no. Let's see. This who's the guy?
That's the
Who's
menu,
the
excuse me.
John Favreau. He's
Yeah,
like
the director?
he is the director and like the main character. Is
Okay,
that
yeah.
have you seen it or no?
I have not, but
Okay, check
I'm a
it
fan
out.
of his
It's
his
they
his
don't
work in general.
it's set in New York, I believe, and Miami. I think those are the two places. But or maybe it's like Los Angeles and Miami. But they talk about New Orleans. But he talks about
Mm,
it from a food perspective.
yeah.
But it's also got that side of it. And if you go to New Orleans, you got to go to the Spotted Cat. That's one of my favorite places. If you
Okay.
haven't heard of it
Spotted
or
Cat.
been there, yeah,
I'll be
very
there.
creative and kind of up and coming vibe to that. There's some more traditional places, but
Mhm.
Spotted Cat's the
I'm
place to go
I'm
as far
writing
as
it
I'm
down so
concerned.
I don't forget.
There you go. There you go. Check out the calendar. Pick a good night. Check that one out. Um, but yeah, and then what you'll notice there in New Orleans, which I love, is there's the buskers everywhere.
Mm,
And at least when I was there, it's been a number of years, but a lot of them kind of like dress the part and they
mm.
play kind of vintage, music out of the era where kind of jazz grew out of New Orleans,
Right.
right? So
Right.
some guy will be
Yeah.
wearing knickerbocker, pants and suspenders and be playing the trumpet, and
Yeah.
it's just so cool because you feel the music history, right? You don't just hear the music history, you feel it in the city. You kind of feel what it used to be like, and the musicians, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, they amplify that feeling. So it's very
Definitely.
cool. Let me go ahead and bring up this clip here. So I'm going to look up Year of the Globe from Blow Globe, and I'm just going to start this one at the front of the clip, right?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, where is this now? Yes. Make sure I'm sharing the sound. Here we go. And go full screen and just let me know if you have any audio issues, but it should come through okay. All right. That was great.
Thanks. I
Sometimes I
haven't
only
listened to
have
that in a while, so it's
no.
fun to
Okay.
listen back to. I'm
Yeah.
playing that song this week, but I haven't listened to it in a long time.
It's a great share because we not only get to listen, we get to watch, the different
Right.
players and the construction of everything too. So it's kind of perfect for what we can talk about here on the show. So that's great.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I'll only play a minute or two of a composition, but I felt like that was really worth checking out every part. So that's cool. Was that you on the drums?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. I don't have my glasses on right now, but that is me.
Okay. Yeah, and your hair
Um
is a little shorter, so.
yep,
So
actually yeah, getting a haircut tomorrow, so yeah,
thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, you need
yeah.
it. You gotta have
Yeah.
a haircut.
Sorry I couldn't get it in before the radio hour today, but yeah, that
So,
piece is that piece I wrote. So we recorded that album. It came out now last year in on June 6th, 2025, I believe. And we recorded it February 2024. And that piece we just listened to was actually the very last piece I wrote, pretty close to the recording session. It was the last piece I wrote for the album. And I just felt like I wanted to write a piece of music that showcased the different elements of what I am trying to accomplish with this band and with my writing and playing with this band. So you have certain blended sections. You have kind of a groove section. Um, I I'm really a um, I'm very liberal with how I interpret the word jazz, and with tremendous respect to the lineage of everything. But I really like to draw in as much musical influence as I can. So you hear kind of a little bit of maybe electronic music or kind of groove based jazz. You hear some more almost classical style sections where it's a little bit more um, lush, right? And you hear, of course, different styles of groove throughout. So, yeah, just thought that would be a good one to share. And it's funny because I still about 2 years after I finished it, the piece, I still feel like it is a very good representation of what I'm trying to do with this band and with the music we play. So
now I've got a lot of questions. I'll probably give some rapid fires just
yeah,
to
go
get
ahead.
through some of the stuff I'm curious about. So, first of all, what do you consider influences? Who do you like to listen to when it comes down to composition, and how have you
Oh
developed your sound?
well, the short answer is everyone and everything. Um, I don't really get too in the weeds on labels and genres, and I try to be as open as I can with all the music I listen to. And yeah, kind of everything. I would say I have to definitely, I grew up a huge Pat Metheny group and Pat Metheny / Lyle Mays fan, and I still am a huge fan of their music and especially Lyle's uh, compositions, even on his solo records too. I'm a huge Lyle Mays fan, so um, and he's a Wisconsinite like me, or was. He's from the great state of Wisconsin as well. Um, I have to shout out Maurice Ravel, um, not only as a genius
Shout out
composer,
Maurice.
not only as a genius composer, but
Yeah.
to me, he's probably the greatest orchestrator, one of the greatest orchestrators who has ever walked this earth. In terms of, I mean, purely what I'm saying, orchestration. Like he possessed such an intuitive, like, knowledge of every instrument he wrote for that he would push them to the brink, but they never. It was never too much. Like you listen to the string quartet, and some of the stuff he wrote is crazy, but it's not too crazy. and it really, all of it serves the music. So he's a huge influence for me, and every time I go back and listen or listen and check out a score, every time I go back to anything he pretty much ever wrote, I learn something new. Um, as far as other like people, I would say someone like Billy Childs, who's a remarkable pianist and composer based in Los Angeles. His writing is very inspiring, and the projects he does. He has a very nice chamber project that I would encourage everyone to check out. Um, yeah, another huge influence would be like the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band. That's another band that I just can listen to any album from any era and just be happy. Um, Donnie McCaslin's quartet, the quartet that's been kind of touring for the last 15 years or 12 years, is another huge influence. That kind of electronic groove music side of jazz. Um, I mean,
Yeah, you don't have to go on forever,
Duke
but it's good.
Ellington,
Yeah, yeah.
Duke Ellington, and Billy Strayhorn are two really massive influences for me. So yeah, I mean it's pretty endless. Like you see, now you got me going because I don't want to leave anyone out, but we would be here for 7 hours while I sit here and
Well, it's
go, well,
actually,
also
I
that person.
wish we've had various composers and arrangers on the show, and for me, it's always a fascination because I didn't share much of my background with you, but I went to school for jazz piano performance over at Rutgers University.
Oh, great.
Um, Studied with Stanley Cowell. Got an opportunity to do just some composing and arranging. Mostly, my composing experience is really just for small group, like guitar and drums and stuff like that. Never really got a chance to do much with the horns and the bigger ensembles, but I've always been fascinated with what you can create out of those things. And just last night, I decided to make kind of like a bedtime playlist for myself on Spotify. And so I go and I'll use AI for this, which is actually kind of an interesting idea where I'll say, I want it to sound a little bit like this or have this in the lyrics or whatever. Sometimes it has bad ideas, sometimes it has some very interesting ideas. But to put together the different genres is very interesting. That's what I was reflecting on last night. I had this playlist and it had everything from Gil Evans and with Miles Davis, to
Oh,
uh,
another huge influence.
yeah, I'm
How could I
sure, I'm
forget
sure,
Gil Evans?
right.
Yeah.
But on into actually found this group. I think they're called the Roches or something like this. Like these women, it was like a
Okay.
women kind of folky singing group. Um, and just thinking how you can put all these things together, and still even to this day, you could go to any of these different genres and you can say, oh, there's this interesting sound that you find in this folk song, and or like Nick Drake was a really, I
Mm.
was listening to some Nick Drake and I was like, who arranged this? I don't know who arranged the music, but it was like, here's this guy who's just kind of doing some folky kind of stuff that you could easily do with just a guitar, but there's these crazy arrangements that really, take you someplace special. Um, and it makes me want to do that, and I don't have the time. It makes me want to play with these sounds, and so I'm very jealous that you get to be able to
Yeah.
do this, and I'm aware of the difficulty, the level of difficulty of bringing all these people together, funding it, or
Oh, that's a
whatever.
whole different
Gosh,
podcast. That's a whole
yeah,
different conversation.
yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
can't
and
imagine bringing all these people together. And
to
by the
the
way, I do, I mention this offline sometimes, but there's other people in the network here who've been on the show, and coming to mind on this, there's a woman out of LA who built this whole little world. She talked about how she kind of had her little family of musicians that she would get on different gigs, and she's a
mm,
producer. I think she was called herself a producer of music for like movies and things like that. But she's really good at like putting ensembles together and working in that domain. So anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. What were you
no,
gonna
I
say?
was just gonna say to your point about writing for different instruments and how exciting it can be. it only gets more exciting when you're writing not only for an alto saxophone, but you're writing for Nathan Rising, who plays alto in my band. Or
Hmm.
when you're actually writing for people's, not just the sound of an instrument, but somebody's specific sound.
Sure.
That's when it really gets fun because um, it's like it's like a complete sandbox where you know the tools, and you can just, it's kind of endless what you can build. And it, like what you were just talking about with that, the person you mentioned lives in LA, you can kind of create your own musical world. So
And how consistent is the group that you're working with there? Is it pretty much the same musicians all the time? Are people cycling in and out,
yeah,
depending
it's
on?
because of the size of the ensemble, it's privy to having different people play in different chairs at times, because not everyone will be available for every gig or performance or whatever we're doing, which is, that's okay. And I welcome having different people play different parts, because it, like what I was just saying before, having somebody with a different alto saxophone sound might bring out a different, or it might blend with the other instruments in a different way, or it will blend with the other instruments in a different way. Um, I try to always call kind of the same core of people, and there's a few members of the band that I really, it's almost like I absolutely need to have to really accomplish what I'm hearing. And you know, there aren't that many jazz French horn players out there floating around. So, having stability on certain chairs helps. Um, and I welcome instability on other chairs because it can be kind of fun.
Hmm.
Um, and we haven't really done any touring yet as a band, but my game plan for that is to bring a few of the members with me, and then to fill the rest of the band with. At this point, I know enough people that live in different cities where we would be playing, that I could just call them and have them come play. And if I don't know someone, I'm sure I could. There's really phenomenal musicians anywhere you go,
Hmm.
in places you wouldn't expect even. So,
Sure.
um, yeah. So, and that band, we're not performing that regularly right now. Um, but we have a Chamber Music America grant, which I am currently working on the music for very slowly. And that's going to be a new suite of music that's kind of centered around different ways to look at time, and time as a metric, time as a feeling, time as an experience, time as all sorts of ways. And I think we might try and premiere that this year, later in the year, the fall of 2026. But I'm kind of still trying to get that together right now, actually. So I will probably have an update on that pretty soon. Um,
You have to check out The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. Have you read this
okay.
book?
The Order of Time.
Yeah, there's an audio book. This is by a physicist. So he talks about the structure of
Carlo
time.
Rovelli.
Carlo Rovelli, yes, Rovelli.
Okay. Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I was very into like science and physics when I was in high school and middle school, and I actually had applied for my undergraduate degrees. I applied to Indiana University as a double major for both physics and music, and I did my audition there, and they looked at me like, "You want to do this?" Which I didn't end up going there, and that didn't really end up happening in any capacity. Um, but that still remains a huge influence for me. Very, very into space exploration, and how time is affected by space, and how space is affected can affect time, and uh, all of it. I mean, yeah.
Wonderful. Um, in terms of your career, I'm curious kind of how you structure it, right? You said you got a grant. I'm sure that kind of accounts for some things. I don't know, maybe you're doing some teaching, performance
Yeah.
opportunities. What does it look like for you these days?
As I said before, it's totally it's almost week to week, where some weeks I might be on a tour the whole week, and then that's what I'm doing, and I'm performing.
With your own groups
Um,
or with other groups or
with other groups or with my own group. Other weeks I might be largely working in New York City. Like I would say in general, kind of a standard schedule for me. Like my home, my or not home base, but my operating. I don't know how to say this. My
your
normal
bat cave?
schedule. My
Okay.
normal schedule is something like I'm kind of hovering around New York City where I live and performing somewhere in the city or doing a rehearsal or recording, something like that in the evening, usually, or later afternoon and evening. And then the first part of the day, I would try to spend working on writing. And if I'm not working, performing in the evening, I'm probably home writing, or I might be going to check out some music. But um, been doing that a little bit less these days because I became a dad last year.
Oh,
So it's been a
congratulations.
little bit more of a thank you, a little bit more on dad duty at night right now, which is its own beautiful thing.
When you say last year, you mean 2025 or 2024?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
2025.
25.
Okay.
Yeah,
How old is this little one?
10 months now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's been really, it's everything every positive cliche anyone has ever said times 1,000 because it's your own child. Um, but yeah, that's kind of typically what my schedule looks like. And then I would say the majority of my traveling, performing lately in the last year has been kind of more short tours, maybe 3 to 5 performances, and then or just a one-off even. Like actually this year I have quite a few one-offs coming up where I travel, just play a performance and do a clinic or something, and then come back to New York. Um, which is totally fine with me. I welcome any of it and all of it. And other than that, like I'm playing at this. There's a club in New York City called the Blue Note, which is a jazz club, and I'm playing there with this Dizzy Gillespie All Star Band project led by John Lee on bass. And I played with the big band version of that ensemble in Budapest. So like, there's another kind of one-off gig, which it's a lot of that's a lot of bodies to move for a one-off gig. But we all flew over there. A big band of us flew over to Budapest and played in a really beautiful concert hall. I'm probably mispronouncing this, called Mupa, MUPA. It was probably the best hall I've ever played in, or one of the best.
Well, Dizzy
So
Dizzy famously was one of those sort of ambassadors, cultural ambassadors who've
oh
traveled
yeah,
around the world playing music, so that's
oh
fitting, I
yeah,
suppose. The name
oh
carries
yeah.
that type of impact.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, I've got some performances with them coming up this year, the small group version, and then there's some talks of maybe a big band tour with that group. Um, and I also teach. I teach lessons. I have a little studio space right down the street from where we live, actually, in Brooklyn, and I teach private lessons out of there, mostly through Zoom these days, which is which is fine because other than just not being in the same room with the person, there's actually a lot of positives I've found from teaching over Zoom. Um, and you get to work with the students in a different way, or a very similar way to if you're instructing in real life. But for instance, like I ask my students to always record video and audio when they are at a rehearsal or performing, and then we can sit there and listen to it together, which would be possible but require a different setup to do it in person together, right? So but it's nice because I find that I end up hearing my students, the students I teach over Zoom, I end up hearing them playing music with other musicians more than if I was teaching them in person, because if I teach them in person we end up focusing on which is also good. There's no value judgment behind anything I'm saying here, but it opens a different kind of thing. So
I want to
and
take
then
a
I'm
minute to hear this other recording
yeah,
whenever you're
sure.
ready. But yeah,
Yeah.
should we hop to it, or do you want to finish the thought?
No, we're good.
Let's do it.
This
Let's check
next
out this
one
other one.
is from this past year, 2025, and features a string quartet and a jazz quartet, which is kind of a unique circumstance. So we could listen to a couple minutes of this.
Check it out. Sorry to cut it short there. Just want to make sure we have enough time to wrap
Yeah,
up. But yeah,
no problem.
that's very appropriate to share. It gives us a different experience, right, than the previous
Yeah,
one. Shows a range of what you're up to.
definitely.
I had a question that it probably might take a little bit more time to answer, but it's coming to mind, so I want to recall it. You mentioned what you want to say. You know, this is what I want to say with this group, right? For example,
Hmm. Yeah.
the previous one. What do you think of when you think of what you want to say? What does that mean to you? Is there an actual phrase that you could say, or is it more like musically you want to express something that
Oh,
hasn't been
musically.
expressed before? Or yeah.
Musically for sure. I mean, to me the music does all the talking,
Hmm.
and you know, for myself. And though I wish I was a better orator, I think the music in a lot of cases does the most, speaks with the most weight compared
Hmm.
to when a lot of people talk, myself included. Um, So yeah,
But
I
what do you think
mean,
that's comprised of in terms of, is it the voices? Like, is it that when you think about like this sort of desire to say something, I find very interesting, right? And again, probably takes longer than we have left, but is
right.
it about, hey, I've heard this and this, and I wanted to put this together based on what I've heard? You know, is it about a time in history? Is it just a sound that you actually hear and you know, you just want to bring it to life?
Yeah, I would say as a overarching or general concept for myself, and I'm only speaking for myself here, because a lot of people, and all of this is, again, I'll say it again, presented without any kind of value judgment, because it's not like it's better or worse to me. Um, some people might have a very strong political message behind their art and their music, societal statement on certain ways the world is or how they want it to be, or about their own identity, about their family's identity, or the country they come from. And for me, and this is just how I grew up relating to music, and it's still how I relate to music. I'm solely focused on the music and the sound, um, and even when I go to concerts and I people present music as, let's say, a protest music, which a lot of jazz music is protest music. It for in many different uh, mediums through many different generations and decades and years. But when that music starts, I just hear the music, and that's just kind of how my brain works. Maybe I'm there's something else I'm lacking, but I found that whenever the music starts in any concert or anything that I'm viewing, I'm just totally focused on the sound. I'm absorbed by it, and so dialed in. So for me, it's just all about the end result, the sound and the music, and how that makes me feel, I guess. So like
Appreciate
what
that.
what I said earlier with Blow Globe, my band, that ends up being a given the unique instrumentation and given how much of the different musical and life influences I'm trying to pull in with that band, I would say that that group in particular ends up being almost like a celebration of all the different music I love, because other people may or may not hear it, but when I hear certain things, I'm like, I because I wrote it, I know what probably influenced this part. I know what probably was influenced, and that's also just being a composer, is making sure you're acknowledging, being honest with yourself about what your influences are, but also not stamping out your own music, because it can be very easy to suddenly feel like you're just copying other people. So trying to find that balance of honoring. I don't like to think of it as copying, but just like honoring the music you love, right? and
Absolutely.
and sometimes it comes out a little closer than we might intend to something we once knew, but or something that influenced us. But at the end of the day, I think, to answer your question, the statement is always just about the music for me, and trying to reflect some kind of beauty in my life, or some thing happening in my life, whether it's internal or external, in the music.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well, we're getting low on time here, and I know you got to run, so we'll do a quick wrap up. I'll keep you on for a minute solo after we kick people out of the Zoom
sure,
room, and we'll send you on your way. But
sounds good.
any just quick last things to plug or final words of wisdom before I do our outro material?
Sure. Yeah, if you're happen to be attending the Gen conference in New Orleans this year, 2026, next week, my band, which we heard that first piece from will be playing there on Thursday the 8th at 1 p.m. And other than that, I would say you can find me. I'm findable. I'm on the internet like everyone is these days. And just go to my website and there's a sign up link for my email newsletter. I promise I send at most one a month, if that, maybe one every 2 months. So stay in touch. And I have another ensemble that I'm just starting to kind of put together these last couple months, which might be of interest to some of the listeners out there. It's going to be another kind of almost coming more from a classical side, and the instrumentation is going to be, I think it's going to be vibraphone, guitar, nylon string guitar, acoustic guitar, violin, cello, and piano. And very heavily that instrumentation is very heavily influenced from Argentinian tango music. And so I'm just replacing the bandian or accordion with vibraphone, which I also play. So, and that's going to be way more of a kind of classical chamber style group than jazz. But there's certainly, given the nature of how writing works and art works, jazz will be inescapable it'll be detectable somewhere in there. But yeah, be on the lookout for that too, because I'm just starting to put that together and game plan for that for possible recording coming up here. So
Great. Well, we haven't had an excellent bandoneon player on the podcast. If you want to bring them in for anything, I can put you in touch.
yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks again to John for joining us today, as well as our live audience. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. That's cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you joined us today for just this session, individually, you can make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, just $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. Sign up at bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh. Don't forget about the podcast, the Substack blog, the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as signing up for our email list on the website. And that'll probably be all for today. We'll sign off. I'll keep you on here for a moment. But for everyone else,